Okay, welcome to the House Economic Matters. It's Tuesday, February the 8th. It's time for our hearings. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone listening that please keep yourself mute until otherwise we let you in. I'd also ask you to be reminded that the chat is only for members. So please do not enter anything to the chat. And lastly, that we are all being recorded. So keep that in mind. Now, for all those listening, I would ask you that it's very important for anyone listening today that this is our hearing time. For all those who have interest in a bill, please utilize this and other times to communicate with my members. Subcommittees are not another hearing. We're not going to do it. It's not, we're doing this in public for a reason. Bringing up issues that were not brought up during a public hearing can become troublesome. So we're not giving a second hearing. Just because we send something to subcommittee, that doesn't mean it's going to stay alive. That doesn't mean it's going to die. It means they're going to listen. So I would ask each and all of you listening that if you have important and you have bills that you find important, to please testify. Please provide written or oral testimony. Don't wait till it's done. And also to say that because we're no longer under the tyrannical reign, we have a new chairman and therefore a much kinder, gentler ECM. So you do not have to fear any repercussions from any of our committee members, as I know they're all professionals. And if you do testify against one of our committee members' bills, they will not hold it personally. We're all elected to do this job and we will not be punishing individuals, but we need to hear your voice during the hearing, not a 9 o'clock phone call. So that being said, I would like to go ahead and start with my first witness, which is, first bill, House Bill 4.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chair, did you leave out just one thing that we on a timer, right?
Oh, we're always on a timer. I apologize.
Okay.
They might not know it, but they'll know it as soon as they try and talk too long. I'm sorry, Delegate Jackson, you have a question.
Yes. So are you saying we're not the Thunderdome anymore, Mr. Chair?
We're not the Thunder. This is a new kinder ECM. We're going to try things a little different. So they don't have to fear repercussions just because they testify against a bill. So that being said, another question. Okay, apparently this is getting, all right. Delegate Walker.
Hi, is C.T. Wilson the chairman of this committee?
I still am. Yes, I am.
Will the real C.T. Wilson please stand up?
Thank you. And Delegate Rogers says you have a question as well.
Yes, Mr. Chair, isn't this the place where we go to make bad bills good and good bills better?
There you go. And we can't do that without the voice of the people and the voice of their representatives. So thank you very much for pointing that out. Thank you. That's the theme of Economic Matters. Okay, so now we'll go on. Delegate Watson, you've been patient. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Good afternoon, Chairman Wilson, Vice Chairman Crosby, and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to present House Bill 4. Like you and your staff, my office has handled hundreds of constituent inquiries about unemployment benefits since April 2020, and we continue to do so today. This bill originates from a constituent matter, which is one of the most challenging that we have seen and that we've had to help resolve. The Labor Department extracted $3,440 in a duplicate overpayment from our constituent, Veronica C., starting in November 2020. What that means is the Labor Department overpaid her $3,440, recognized their mistake, and then they took it back twice. It took until September 28th, 10 months later, for the department to admit the error and approve the repayment. As to when she could expect to receive the money, she was provided the following response from the Benefits Control Unit in September. We are working on the issue on issuing all refunds as fast as possible. I've inquired about the status of your refund and was told that there is a backlog. We hope to have the backlog cleared within 3 to 4 weeks. On November 10th, 2021, a check was mailed to Veronica exactly 1 year after the error occurred. HB 4 establishes a process that the Secretary of Labor must follow when the department is notified by a claimant that an overpayment by the claimant has occurred. Following the recovery of benefits from a claimant, if the claimant notifies the Secretary that the actual amount recovered exceeded the amount stated in the recovery notice, the Secretary must investigate the claim within 30 days after receiving that notice, and within 14 days after completing the investigation, refund the money. It's impossible to know how many constituents find themselves in this situation, particularly when they are financially vulnerable. How many are still out there? I don't know. You don't know. In order to help us with that, the bill contains a requirement that the Labor Department submit a report to the General Assembly on a monthly basis, which includes things like the total number of such claims being investigated, the status, the amount of funds in dispute, the legislative district, and the date the contested funds were returned. The Chief of Staff of my office is Terry Chaconis, and she's been involved in government constituent services at the county and state level since 2003. Like many of your staff, if there were an Olympic gold medal, she would have it for constituent service. And I think it's really important that we take the time to hear from her and from the constituent in this case, Veronica Christensen. And so thank you for the consideration of this bill, and I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you. And I'm sure you'd like me to call your Chief of Staff first.
Yes, please.
Mrs. Teresa Chaconis.
Yes, hi, Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a perspective on House Bill 4. The Veronica C. case rose to the top of the list of the most challenging unemployment insurance cases that our office dealt with. When Veronica contacted Delegate Watson in mid-August 2021, it seemed like such an obvious problem to solve. She came to us saying that for 9 months, she'd been trying to get $3,440 back from the Labor Department. We immediately contacted the Labor Department via the standard form, and we contacted our assigned liaison. I remember thinking, this shouldn't take too long. Between August and November, we sent numerous emails back and forth with Veronica and the Labor Department. What I called the looping nightmare of a phone system that Labor encouraged her to use left me scratching my head. Veronica C. spent the entire year either trying to get her money back or worrying whether she would get it back. She was enormously patient, but frustrated that the matter was taking so long. Our liaison told us the case was closed. The Benefits Control Unit is the only unit that can help. Benefits Control Unit told our constituent, just wait. We know we took your money, but we can't find it. This was a defining moment in the advocacy of our office, and HB 4 was the result. The requirements embedded in HB 4 will allow claimants to get an answer in a timely manner to help ease their concerns and to get them the money they're due, their own money. The reporting mechanism will allow members of the General Assembly to see how widespread the problem is and decide if further action is required. One constituent wrote during the pandemic unemployment problems, quote, "We need a voice," unquote. I'd like to express my appreciation to Delegate Watson for being that voice today. I ask that you lend your voices on behalf of countless residents who have found themselves in the same vulnerable position as Veronica C. by finding a favorable vote on House Bill 4. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. And I gave you a little more time because of your hard work on this issue. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Chair Wilson.
Going to the next witness was, I believe, was it Veronica Christensen? You can go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and members of the committee. I'm so grateful to Delegate Watson for introducing HB 4. I've already provided written statement chronicling the timeline to illustrate that it took me 1 year to receive a refund of $3,440 from the Labor Department. The overpayment was an error to begin with on their part, put me in a wrong program. They sent me a lump sum check. I repaid them back as soon as I received notice of it. I paid it online. I had documentation that they received it. They sent me a receipt and it was on my 1099. In January, they sent me a notice that I still owed the money on the original dates and the original issue. I said, no, I provided them all the information again. 8 months later, they started taking money out of my check right away again. It took me 8 months to try to get help. I finally contacted Delegate Watson's office and her Chief of Staff, Terry. She said she would help. She reached out to the Maryland Department of Labor, and I finally received my check November 2021, 1 year within the same week, 1 year after their first error, put me in the wrong program. Thank you for her intervention. And this bill will definitely help with overpayments and corrective action to be taken more seriously. And I urge a favorable report on this bill. Thank you all, especially Terry.
And ma'am, I want to say thank you for the entire community. We hate to hear situations like this when they occur, but it is very important to hear them from the mouth of the individual that was basically dealing with them. So thank you very much for your time. Hopefully we can make a resolution that although you couldn't avoid, others may avoid. Thank you very much. The next person we're going to call is, it just says Maryland Legal Aid. That can't be right.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Go ahead. Is this someone from Maryland Legal Aid speaking?
Yes, I am.
Okay, please go ahead. Ma'am.
My name is Cornelia Bright Gordon. Greetings, Honorable Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I am testifying on behalf of Maryland Legal Aid, and also I've uploaded written testimony as well. I've been practicing unemployment law and supervising an unemployment practice, among others, for about 22 years. Maryland Legal Aid has historically represented many, many thousands of unemployment claimants. Maryland Legal Aid is testifying today at the request of Delegate Courtney Watson. Maryland Legal Aid supports House Bill 4. It corrects a material omission in the UI overpayment statute. Should the agency determine that there is an overpayment and issues a notice and recovers benefits from a claimant, and the recovered amount is more than what was stated in the notice, the bill provides a process for the first time for the claimants to so notify the agency and to require the agency to investigate and refund any amount exceeding the notice to the claimant. Furthermore, the bill requires the agency to report on claims of this nature to the General Assembly, so there is some record that the General Assembly can review to determine how often this is happening and for the public as well. Again, Maryland Legal Aid supports House Bill 4, and we urge the committee to issue a favorable report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Last we have on this bill, Abby Peck.
Yes, Chairman Wilson, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 4. My name is Abby, and I'm the policy intern with Cash Campaign of Maryland. The Cash Campaign of Maryland promotes economic advancement for low to moderate income individuals and families in Baltimore and across Maryland. The pandemic has put a huge financial burden on many Marylanders, and social safety nets such as unemployment insurance are put in place to provide individuals with the ability to survive. Unfortunately, Maryland's UI program has failed in its core mission of providing a critical but temporary safety net for people out of work. Maryland's Department of Labor is recovering benefits in excess, is not allowing claimants to appeal the redetermination. DOL is issuing overpayment notices and collecting the incorrect amount from claimants. This is causing them to lose crucial benefits. Beacon, being the designated forum for appeals, has proven to be inadequate due to the lack of clear instruction on appeal process and inadequate information on the notice. Individuals have shared stories of owing thousands of dollars or not receiving payments at all. When people are living paycheck to paycheck, they do not have the ability to pay thousands of dollars whenever requested or miss out on anticipated payments. UI is a basic and essential safety net for workers who are temporarily unemployed through no fault of their own. It must function properly, especially during a pandemic. Unfortunately, Maryland's system has not. Improper communication avenues create additional setbacks, like owing money that does not exist or not receiving money, which in turn can cause barriers in other aspects of life, such as housing and nutrition. These aspects are essential for surviving not just a life in the pandemic, but also life in day-to-day. HB 4 addresses these concerns by requiring the DOL to investigate claims that the incorrect amount was recovered and refund the claimant the difference. Thus, we encourage a report on HB 4. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes the witness and the hearing. I seeing no witnesses, we'll move on to the next bill, which is Delegate Polakovich.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, real quick, Delegate Queen.
I apologize, Delegate Queen, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
I was waiting for questions. A question for the sponsor of the bill. I like the bill, just two questions. When we have errors like that and the money is paid back, is it paid back with interest?
Can't hear you, Courtney or Delegate Watson.
Ms. Chaconis, do you know the answer to that question?
I don't have the answer to that question. We do have the recipient of the check on the call, though. Ms. Christensen may be able to say if her check had interest added to it.
No, there was no interest paid.
Okay. And the second question, then I'm assuming we'll get this report, and let's say the report shows that it's a 5% error rate. That may not sound like it's bad, but when we're talking about unemployment, that's pretty bad. What happens? Is there any way we can penalize the state?
Yeah, it's a good point. The law will now say that they must do this they must investigate within 30 days and refund within 14 days. And they will be giving us the data so that we can hold them accountable. But
how do we hold them accountable? Suppose they don't make that 14 days. What do we do?
We have a lot of problems with that right now, with the administration not doing some of the things that are in the law. And hopefully we will be able to count on them to follow the law, but I'm not sure how we hold them accountable beyond that. But open to ideas.
Thank you.
Delegate Jackson.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. This question is for the sponsor as well. I kind of had the same concerns as Delegate Queen. It seems like we're creating another process for them to do when they already seem to be backlogged with their current responsibilities, and some of the laws that we passed, like as you said, last year is not getting implemented. I guess I was just kind of wondering how can we ensure that this process is actually followed, but I agree with the bill though.
Good point. I mean, we put in there what we felt was reasonable and would give us the most accountability, and we have to hope that we get, the next administration is going to be willing to follow the rules, but open to suggestions.
Thank you.
Delegate Brooks.
Delegate Brooks. You're on mute, Delegate Brooks.
To the sponsor, yeah, I agree with the sentiments coming from the other two delegates. But I think what could be done is to do what what government does to the citizens when they don't comply, and that's to assess a penalty and interest. But now I would forego the penalty portion, but I definitely would add an interest component to this. On the federal side. Once you file a return, and if the federal government, they've got 45 days to process that. And if they don't, then they've got to pay interest. Now, with the state, Maryland had to have the same thing codified in law. But I went and I was trying to figure out how much interest Maryland has paid taxpayers for delayed returns, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. They could not give me a number. And I think the reason why, because nothing has ever been paid. So we need to hold the state accountable for that. And if they don't comply or meet the regulations, once you add that that interest component to it, at least the victim will be at least getting some compensation, being made whole to some extent. So perhaps that could be, added on as an amendment or something.
Delegate Brooks, that's an excellent point, and we can work on an amendment and we'll run that by you to see if you have any thoughts on that. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Irons.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I mean, a lot of these things have happened due to the pandemic, and I understand that, and I agree with the fact that we shouldn't be withholding money. But if in normal circumstances, as far as unemployment, how many of these would we normally incur based on every other year? Have we had many of these in the past when things were normal, we'll call normal, And are we better suited moving forward than we were then with how we address these problems? That would be my only concern with the bill.
So noted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 4. Next up, we have House Bill 234, which is Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Good afternoon, committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Julie Polakovich-Carr, here to present House Bill 234. This legislation would notify unemployment recipients of their potential eligibility for a key anti-poverty tax credit. The Earned Income Tax Credit, the EITC, is a very targeted federal and state tax credit to help low-income working people. The EITC is considered to be America's largest and most successful anti-poverty program. Unfortunately, 1 in 4 Maryland families who are eligible for the EITC don't claim the credit, and this percentage has been increasing in recent years. This leaves an estimated $304 million in federal credits unclaimed by Maryland taxpayers each year. And this lack of awareness denies low-income Marylanders and their local economies millions of dollars in consumer spending power. One group of people who are eligible for the EITC, but who may not be aware of their eligibility, are the unemployed. This legislation would require the Department of Labor to annually notify all unemployment insurance recipients about their potential eligibility for the Earned Income Tax Credit. This notification would happen concurrently with the annual issuance of 1099-G tax forms, which is either done electronically through the Beacon system or a physical mailing, depending on the claimant's election. As most unemployed Marylanders have opted for electronic communications from labor, the cost to the agency should be minimal. This bill enhances other outreach efforts already occurring in Maryland, such as the Department of Human Services EITC outreach to participants in the Maryland Emergency Food Program. Additionally, this bill would also require the 1099-G forms for unemployment benefits to be bilingual in English and Spanish, as Maryland already does for all other 1099-G forms. Finally, I do want to address an issue raised in the Department of Labor's informational testimony, specifically if they have the ability or not to alter the content or language of a 1099-G tax form. Several months ago, I did speak with the Comptroller's Office about this bill, and they didn't raise any concerns. Not only is the Comptroller's Office our state's tax authority, but they are also responsible for issuing all 1099-G forms in Maryland, except for the ones related to unemployment benefits. And notably, those 1099-G forms issued by the Comptroller's Office are already bilingual in English and Spanish. And moreover, 5 other states already include information about the Earned Income Tax Credit on their 1099-G forms, and you can see an example in my written testimony. I thank the committee for your time and hope we can take this simple step to help more eligible Marylanders get their tax credits.
Thank you, Delegate. We have 1 witness in favor, so we'll call her and then we can take questions. Robin McKinney.
Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to support HB 234. This bill will require the Maryland Department of Labor to include information in English and Spanish regarding the availability of the federal and state Earned Income Tax Credit. My name is Robin McKinney, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Cash Campaign of Maryland. Cash promotes economic advancement for low to moderate income individuals and families in Baltimore and across the state of Maryland. More than half of our tax filers earn less than $20,000, with many earning less than $10,000. The EITC is a very powerful tool that's utilized by federal, state, and local governments. As you heard, unfortunately, about 20% of eligible workers don't claim the credit. Due to these recent EITC expansions that we had last year, it's now more than ever important to make sure that we get the funds to every single person who's eligible. Every year, there are millions of dollars that are left on the table that can be used for basic necessities, and it pumps money into local economies. Cash has been working with the Department of Labor for the last 20 years on a mailing to everyone that receives their 1099 form that is a stuffer that is added into it. We've worked with them closely. That is something that is currently being funded outside of government. Cash is picking up the cost for that, as well as the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange, to make sure that the same population has access to healthcare. This year, the total cost for that mailing was $2,838, which is not a large cost, but it's something that the department was not willing to fund internally. And so that is something that every year we as a nonprofit have to fundraise for what we see as a core government service. Information about the EITC should be available in both English and Spanish, like the rest of 1099-G informations. We find a lot of people bring these in to their tax preparation appointments with them. So it's key that they're provided together. For these reasons, we urge a favorable report on HB 234.
Thank you. Delegate Queen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair. And thank you all for bringing this bill. I think it's a good bill. I just have a question around the timing. So there's no limit on how long I need to be receiving unemployment to get the EITC credit? Because you may not have unemployment for a long time, for a full year or something. So that's not an issue with getting EITC credit?
That's right. Under the existing rules, which this bill don't touch in terms of who's eligible for the state and federal earned income tax credit, you need to have earned at least $1 in wages in that tax year. So as long as the person did work at all during the year before they started receiving their unemployment benefits, they would potentially be eligible for the EITC if their income overall is low enough.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Shi.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I love the idea of more proactive communication to people who otherwise are most likely to be disengaged from a lot of communication with government. And I wish somebody had told me, the options I had when I was a struggling low-income earner. So my question is, I assume it's fairly easy to implement. I just tried to check out the fiscal note. And it seemed like it's one-time $50,000 programming cost, so that's very nominal. Is there any requirement of electronic versus mailing notification?
Thank you, Delegate Chief, for those questions. And actually, I believe the fiscal note you might have been looking at is for my next bill that's up before the committee.
Okay.
This one didn't have a fiscal note. I think Labor said they could do it with existing resources. Yeah, the intention would be that they would be providing the notification either electronically, which is how most people have opted to receive their communications from Labor. So that would be through Beacon. But for the small minority of people who still want paper copies, it would be provided in that paper form as it is now.
Great, thank you.
Okay, seeing no more questions, that concludes the hearing for House Bill 234. Next up, we have House Bill 253. Again, Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So HB 253 would ensure that unemployed Marylanders receive additional weeks of benefits when unemployment is especially bad and the extended benefits are fully paid for by the federal government. This legislation is about future-proofing against future recessions should the federal government again pay for extended benefits, as they have twice in the past decade. As the committee knows, unemployment benefits in Maryland last for up to 26 weeks. Federal law, however, allows for an additional 13 or 20 weeks of extended benefits to be provided when unemployment is extraordinarily high and persistent. Under federal law, there are two ways that extended benefits can be activated in a state. The first on switch is mandated by federal law, and Maryland and every other state have enacted it. But this is a switch that is fairly difficult to flip on. So the federal government allows states to adopt a second on switch that isn't as hard to turn on. This bill would adopt that second on switch, but make it conditional to when the federal government is paying for 100% of the cost of the extended benefits. This bill is structured so that businesses would not pay anything extra, nor would their experience ratings be impacted. Rather, this bill is about using free federal money when it is available. 25 states plus the District of Columbia have enacted the second on switch proposed in this bill. Notably, Maryland enacted comparable legislation back in 2011. That law, however, was tied to a specific federal law that has since expired. Consequently, our state statute also sunsetted. But this had real-world implications during the pandemic. At the end of May 2020, Maryland's existing extended benefits provision triggered on. This was the first time since 1982 that Maryland qualified for extended benefits using the first on switch. Extended benefits automatically triggered off in mid-December 2020 as our numbers fell below the statutory trigger. Maryland's total unemployment rate, however, was high enough for another 4 months to continue to warrant extended benefits if we had allowed for it under state law. Meanwhile, in states that had enacted the second optional on switch for extended benefits, residents continued to receive extra weeks of extended benefits that were fully paid for by the federal government. HB 253 would prevent future interruptions of extended unemployment benefits and will maximize the flow of free federal money into our state's unemployment program. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have two witnesses in favor, and then we'll take questions. First up, Will Raderman.
Hi, do you hear me and see me all right? Awesome. Great to meet everyone. Dear Chair and members of the Economic Matters Committee, thank you for this opportunity to submit testimony in support of House Bill 253. My name is Will Raderman. I'm a policy analyst for the Niskanen Center, a pro-market and pro-government nonpartisan think tank. My comments focus on the extended benefits program, which are supplemental weeks of unemployment insurance activated when labor market conditions are bad, and how Maryland can make simple changes now to help workers when the next crisis hits. The pandemic has underscored the importance of good income supports. Workers struggle to obtain new jobs during recessions, and additional weeks of unemployment insurance help families keep their heads above water while simultaneously supporting local businesses and the economy. During crises, Congress often helps states provide additional weeks of UI. In 2020 and 2021, Congress temporarily expanded the eligibility, duration, and size of those unemployment benefits, including full federal funding for state extended benefits, which the federal government usually splits the cost of with states. There are several metrics that can be used to turn on extended benefits and initiate those federal contributions. Every state applies an activation trigger based on the insured unemployment rate, which focuses on how many workers receive regular state UI. However, this measure underestimates the severity of downturns. Applying the total unemployment rate metric, which is the proportion of unemployed workers to the state's total labor force, improves performance. HB 253 would allow Maryland to utilize this metric to trigger on extended benefits, but only when the federal government is covering all the costs. Maryland's program turned off in December 2020, but could have stayed active until April 2021, helping working families cover essential spending if HB 253 was in state law. For these reasons, I urge the committee for a favorable report.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have David Rodwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is David Rodwin. I'm an attorney at the Public Justice Center. We support HB 253 and request a favorable report. I just want to make two main points in support of this common sense bill. First, extended benefits are available only during prolonged periods of high unemployment. These additional weeks of benefits are only available when the economy is truly terrible and jobs are scarce. Prolonged unemployment can take a real toll on people. During the worst months of the recent economic crisis, we heard from so many Marylanders relying on unemployment benefits to survive and provide food and shelter for their families, which often included young children. One such individual, a woman named Monica B., told us that she was terrified at looming cutoff dates for the federal unemployment benefits she was receiving, which at the last moment the federal government ultimately extended. She worried that she wouldn't be able to make car payments, would lose her car, and would lose her ability to get to the new job that she was looking for. She began suffering from severe anxiety, worried that she and her husband would not make their mortgage payments and would lose the home where they lived with their 4-year-old daughter. Extended benefits provide a lifeline to thousands of Marylanders like Monica when they need it most. My second point is that the metric that Maryland currently uses to determine when extended benefits are available is outdated and results in the state losing out on extended benefits when, during periods of true high unemployment. Many other states have adopted the language that HB 253 has for that reason. These benefits that HB 253 would provide are 100% federally funded, and this common sense bill would make sure that Maryland can access them when we need them. For these reasons, the Public Justice Center requests a favorable report on HB 253. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And are there any questions? Seeing none, that concludes the bill hearing for today. Please keep in mind that we have a voting session at 1400. Thank you all.